This is Dobro Basics. I'm Justin Gambrell, and today we're going to focus on one of the most basic building blocks that is needed to be able to play the instrument. And that's some of the tools that you actually need just to be able to play. Today's video is going to be focused on the fingerpicks, why we have them and how we use them in, the most basic necessities. Now in Dobro, kind of like a banjo, we don't use just a regular flat pick. A guitar might use a flat pick, a mandolin would use a flat pick, but we instead use our finger picks. There's two different kinds of finger picks. First, we have our thumb pick, which tends to be often made of plastic, and it fits nicely around the thumb. Our finger picks tend to be more made out of metal, and they slide one on your index finger and the other on your middle finger. Now, I should put up a picture right next to me that you'll be able to see mine a little closer than this video will allow. My finger picks have an opening where you can kind of see my fingertip through it. I tend to like the sound and feeling of that, but most that you're going to find are just going to be a curved piece of metal that you'll be able to use for the strings. Now, for the most part, your finger picks are just going to slide on. But you'll notice that mine are not quite perfectly aligned with my finger. So if I was to hold it out, they seem to be skewed just ever so to the side. And you can kind of see that a little bit in the picture, how with especially my middle finger, you can kind of see a little bit of the finger coming out the back edge. That's because it's not completely perpendicular to my finger. And that's all going to make sense in a quick moment. So when we hold our instrument, we're then going to put our right hand on the faceplate, generally right over top of the bridge. When you put your fingers down, you'll find that they all can nicely rest on strings. I will put my middle finger on top of the first string, index on top of the second string. Those are your highest two. And then thumb kind of resting upon the low sixth. That's just a more natural resting position. But for the sake of this example, you can kind of see, and you probably can't see it from the video, I'll take a picture and stick it in later if that's the case. But you'll see that they all sit nicely. And when your finger picks are askew a little bit from your fingers, they rest nicely perpendicular to the strings, because that's our goal. We want to be striking the strings as perpendicular as we can. Otherwise, you're just kind of scraping along, and that's not making sound. But if you come at it perfectly perpendicular, you get a very nice, crisp sound. And so that's why they might not feel like they're sitting quite perfectly, but as soon as you go to play, that's going to feel the absolute most natural way to go about it. And so in Dobro, kind of like a banjo, we use our three finger picks. And there's a couple main reasons for that. First of all, is just kind of the natural tendency of the Dobro. The fact that it's sitting on your lap makes it so that if you were to take a flat pick, and try to strum back and forth, your arm's going to be in a weird position. It doesn't feel quite as natural as when your guitar is just sitting right here on your lap. We also aren't using our fingers to hold down the frets. We use the steel bar. And while I haven't even held mine until now, because that's just the focus of another video, it makes it a little hard to flat pick around it when you have just this big hunk of metal to be doing that. It also makes it so that on Dobro, we can play some fuller different notes or rolls to what we're doing. That rather than just playing up and down scales, I can also roll. Or even just play fuller chords by only choosing certain strings. And so the ability to be able to pick and choose some different strings rather than really just needing to play all or one of them makes it a lot easier to play some nicer and different sounds on the dobro. And so playing with the finger picks works somewhat as it may feel. And when we get to the practicality of it, our finger picks help us to be able to kind of move up and down a little faster. We can switch between different picks and put different picks on different strings. A lot of this will kind of come as you go. And if you read some tabs, sometimes the tabs will tell you what finger you should be using for each note. And so tab is tablature. It's kind of like music that helps show you the frets. And that may tell you exactly which finger they want you to be playing each note with. But there are a couple tendencies that we can stick to kind of be our natural rule of thumb. And the first general rule that I find tends to be almost self-explanatory. When we have our 3 fingers and 6 strings, we can kind of imagine the closer to you, the lower the string, probably the more likely you're going to use the thumb pick. The higher up you go, away from you, the more likely you're going to be using your finger picks. So to hold that rule to a more extreme, your low string, the low G 6 string, that is pretty much always going to be played with your thumb. On the alternate end, your high D string, your first string, that's going to be your middle finger pretty much every time. After that, it gets to be the lower strings tend to be more of the thumb. The higher you go tends to be a little more index finger, and then the high one tends to be just the middle finger. A lot of things will make sense as you go. You know, if I'm going up a scale or playing just between 2 notes, I'll probably use the thumb on the lower and the index on the next one up. That allows me to just go back and forth nicely. If I'm playing a roll, I'll want the lowest to be the thumb, the next one to be the middle, and the highest to be the next one to be the index and the highest to be the middle finger, because that's just going to make the most physical sense than trying to go backwards. So whether I'm rolling the first, third, and sixth strings, or if I'm just going to do the third, second, and first, I just want to be hopping between the fingers. That allows us to be able to make the most notes happen faster. One of the biggest pitfalls that someone who's newer to the dobro can often fall into, and I know I did when I was younger, was to just be playing with the thumb all the time. It can feel a little more natural and doesn't take as much work to just go. But even for myself, that ends up being almost the max speed that I can play clean. But if I switch my fingers up, all of a sudden it's faster. It's even a little cleaner too to be trying to do it that way. And so we want to be able to use our picks to our advantage. And that includes using all 3, using them in places where it feels right, because again, your hand's going to be sitting here. It'll feel better in different positions. And what's ultimately going to sound good for what you're playing. And that's what we can find here. And so to just give a simple exercise for it, we're going to use one of those rolls that I just showed. And so if you hit the 6th string with your thumb, that's the G. Then your 3rd string with your index, that's also G. And 1st string with your middle, that's D. So we'll hit those 3 in a row, not together, but in a row. Do that one more time. And then hit the 6th again. And then the 1st. So we'll skip the index finger that time. And then you put all of that together. and you repeat it. And playing that just gets your fingers a little warmed up. So it's 6-3-1, 6-3-1, 6-1. It'll be 8 total notes. And that can just get your fingers warmed up. And you can switch it between different strings just to get used to using all 3 fingers. And at this point, like, I haven't even put my steel down for the exercise. That's just completely open, the G chord, and it sounds nice and simple. Because this is a basic building block to play. It might feel boring, it might seem almost silly to just sit there going. But even I messed up in that moment. And so to get it proper under your fingers, you just have to work on it. And eventually, you're not really have to work on it anymore, and you'll just be flying through your scales, you'll be playing different roles, and we'll keep building in different videos as I teach some different roles down the line or some different licks, and you'll be able to work on that some more. So remember to make sure that you have picks, make sure that they fit, they're not going to fly off, and that they're comfortable. And begin to work on needing to use all 3 fingers and not just any one of them as you continue to play. So go on, get to work, and start playing the dobro more and more each and every day. Thanks for listening.